What's up, everybody? Welcome to Touchdown Texas, episode 26. I'm your host, Shivam Patel, and my co-host here, Nick Rodriguez. We are so close to spring football, just a week away. Longhorn football is back, ladies and gentlemen. But Nick, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. We got a lot to discuss today: football, some basketball, on the men's and women's side. So I'm definitely excited to get into it.
Definitely. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the men's and women's basketball team, who both made the tournament. So congrats. And also, we're going to be doing a spring football preview. Like I said, it starts next Tuesday, March 25th. So this episode, we're going to preview the offense. And then in the following episode, the next episode, we're going to preview the defense. And then as we get close through spring practice, we're going to start introducing you to some of the new transfers and the freshmen that are now with the Texas Longhorns. Well, let's start on the hard court, the men's basketball. It was a nail biter, Nick, but they made it in the tournament. So I want to ask you, how were you feeling going into Selection Sunday? Then how did you feel when you heard the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team got announced?
Well, it helped that we had two key wins in the SEC tournament. We had to beat Vanderbilt, and we really needed to beat A&M as well. Got both of those wins. So at the beginning of the weekend, I was feeling pretty confident. But as I was reading more and we were texting back and forth, I was being less confident because it looked like Indiana was going to jump us. Other teams were going to get in our way. We ended up getting in front of Indiana. North Carolina also gets in, which a lot of people were not happy about, that they didn't finish that great. Ultimately, I'm very happy that we're in. I mean, we did not play great even like a week ago. We just started to pick up and play at the right time. So that's awesome. That's great news. We got to play in this first four tournament. We're going to play against Xavier on Tuesday, and then hopefully we get a nice crack at Illinois. But I'm pumped. I'm glad we're in. We did have to wait a while. But once UNC got in, I felt pretty good about being in as well. And we sneak in here, and we get a chance against Xavier on Wednesday night to prove why we belong. So it's going to be a good game, and I'm definitely glad that we're in.
It's going to be an awesome game. And I was so thrilled that we're in. We took care of business. Like Nick said, we won 2 games in the SEC tournament, 2 quad 1 wins. That makes 7 for the year. No other team could even touch that in the bubble. And it was very tightly contested, but I was so glad that we came through. I think that this team now is going to be rejuvenated as we continue to get healthier. Chandel Weaver is back. Tremont Mark, you could tell, is playing with a lot more confidence since he's been back from injury. So I think we have a chance to make some noise. But these first-round games are very much toss-ups against Xavier. Xavier likes to shoot a lot of threes like an NBA team. They're really good at defense. So it's going to be a battle. But we have Trey Johnson, and I'm feeling very confident that we can definitely get it done. And then, like Nick said, we would play Illinois in the second round. They're a very good team. Don't get me wrong, but let's just see what happens after we pass Xavier, and then let's see that we can get the win and extend our season. So now let's talk about the women's. So the women's are the contrary to the men's. They earned the number 1 seed, or one of the number 1 seeds. So how do you feel about the women's team going into this tournament?
I mean, I feel great about the women's. I mean, the last time we saw them, they didn't play at their best. They got blown out by South Carolina. Wasn't their best win. Or best game, I should say. But you're right. They're definitely different than the men's. There was no question they were going to be in. They are one of the 1 seeds. I think they're the third 1 seed, right? So yeah. Obviously they have had a great season. They deserve the number 1 seed. They will play the likes of High Point or William and Mary. They'll battle it out as the 16 seeds, and then we'll go from there. But it's a little different than women's basketball, where we're hosting. It's in Austin instead of like a neutral site. There's not that many college basketball arenas for there to be a women's and men's neutral site games for all the big teams. So that's a huge advantage for Texas. They'll come out and support the girls, and I believe that if the men's weren't going to make it, they were going to get invited to the NIT, and we were going to decline just because, something like this, we were going to be hosting one of the women's games. And that's a big deal, especially since we have a chance to win a national championship here, and which hopefully we do. Hopefully we can make a nice little run again like last year.
Definitely. So yes, that game is going to be on campus. I know this week is spring break for a lot of Texas students, but the game is until Saturday evening. So hopefully those students will start trickling in back into Austin, Texas for the rest of the spring semester. The women's team is making their 37th appearance in the NCAA tournament, which is tied for second most among NCAA D1 teams. Which props to them. That's excellent. They're 31-3 on the season, having won 15 of their last 16 games. And get this, ladies and gentlemen, they're 15-0 at home at the Moody Center. So they're the complete opposite of the men's
Wow.
team.
Yeah.
Men's team was better on the road. Like, I didn't like our games when we played at Moody Center, but the women's team is absolutely unbeatable there. They would play the winner of, believe it or not, against Illinois or Creighton. So they could be a chance for both the men's and the women's team play Illinois
Yeah.
in the second round. But let's see what's going to happen. Madison Booker, Rory Harmon, Vic Schaefer's cooking up something very special. So we're going to definitely react to a lot of the games as they continue to progress in the NCAA tournament. Well, now let's get back to football. So again, spring practice is a week from Tuesday as we're recording on Monday, March 17th. I can't believe it because I feel like we just ended our season against Ohio State and it's already here, spring football. So let's talk about a preview, a position by position preview on the offense first. So let's start with quarterback. So we already know who the starting quarterback is. The starting quarterback is going to be, for the Texas Longhorns. But tell me about, what are you expecting Arch Manning this year?
Well, the good thing with Arch is that he's played a lot of football already for as young as he is, right? So this is when he's really going to mature. This is his third offseason with us, right? Because he was redshirted, and then he played, obviously, last season. He played some crucial games for us. He played even against Georgia when Quinn and the rest of the offense was struggling. So I just want to see how much of the offense he has grown into. I mean, he's known a lot of this. Not a lot of the offense has changed. So how much does he know? How quick can he get out? How much can he audible to different things? It's a whole new set of receivers. For the most part, a couple guys are coming back for their sophomore years, but it's going to be interesting. We're going to see how much he knows, and he played in some big time games and some big time moments. So I'm sure he'll be ready to go. And spring practice is just one of many tests throughout the whole 2025 season. So I'm sure he'll do fine.
I am so excited. Longhorns fans, we've been waiting for 2 years from this. Again, respect to Quinn Ewers. Those of you that watch our show know me and Nick are huge Quinn Ewers fans. Respect to that guy for everything that he put for this university. But Arch Manning era is here. How exciting is that going to be for us? And he's dynamic with his arm and his legs. He's improved every single spring. As Nick said, this is his third spring because he's enrolled early, and then last year, so he already knows the offense under Stark. He knows what to expect. They already said that he's already getting together with the wide receivers and having throwing sessions with them. And it's like a competition for the wide receivers to see who can get comfortable with Arch Manning and who can build that camaraderie and that chemistry. Arch Manning is going to be lethal with his legs, even though we know Sark does not prioritize the quarterback running game. But he may see that if after he goes through all his progressions, he may take off the run because that just adds another element that the defense is going to have to stop. If the defense has to have a spy for Arch, that means you're going to get more one-on-one coverage on the outside with our dynamic wide receivers who I like against any DB in the country. So it's just going to open up the offense completely. Arch Manning, he's going to have some growing pains. It might not be 100% perfect the rest of the year, but he's going to continue to put in the work, put in the film preparation, and get better and better and better. So that he's our QB1. After Arch Manning, just to give some people some perspective, we have Trey Owens, who was a freshman last year. He redshirted. Then we have a true freshman coming in, KJ Lacey from Alabama. So we're a little bit young, Nick, at QB 2 and 3. Is that a worry as much for you, even though Trey Owens has looked really good in the spring game last year?
Yeah, I mean, I hope. I mean, it's obviously not going to be anything like last year, where there's going to be any sort of quarterback controversy, even if Arch does struggle in the first couple of games or practice or anything like that, which I really don't think he will. I think it'll be more of the case of if he does get hurt, which fortunately he's been on the right side of injury luck, barring he hasn't played a lot of games. But, if he does go down, It'll be interesting who there's not a true QB2. I mean, they could really battle it out. I'm sure it's going to be Trey Owens, but we'll see. And hopefully Arch doesn't, hopefully we don't have to get to that. But the luxury of last year was when Quinn did get hurt, we had Arch, and Arch played really well in the times that he had to play. And then we could also throw him into some packages. So hopefully that's something that we don't have to address. Arch has had an injury history in high school or in his early college career, but it certainly would be a question if that were to arise.
Definitely, but I'm not worried because those of you that watched the spring game last year, Trey Owens absolutely balled out. He could be a future quarterback for the University of Texas. It's just a matter of is he going to yes. Is he going to have enough patience, because he might not start for another 3 years, but he's definitely somebody that we can get behind. But again, the Arch Manning era is here. Not much to talk about with the quarterbacks. We'll be diving much deeper into Arch as the spring and as we get closer to the season. But now let's talk about a position that's good. This is my position to watch on the offense, the running backs. This is going to be interesting. So we have Trey Weisner coming back, who had a lot of experience, and he had 1,000 yards last year. But also we have Cedric Baxter, who we lost before the season even started with an ACL, a very serious injury. They said he's progressing a lot, Nick, but how do you look at the running back room coming into the spring?
Well, it's going to be another running back committee until we have Baxter all the way 100%. Even when he is back at 100%, it's still going to be running back by committee. Trey Weisner was a guy who was very low on the depth chart at the beginning of last season, and due to injuries and poor play at the time to Jaden Blue and Baxter getting hurt, Trey Weisner shot up to the number one guy. So it's going to be very interesting. Baby Rhino will still be in the mix. He'll be a sophomore this upcoming season. So, I think it's Trey Weisner's squad right now. And then as Baxter gets more and more healthy, he'll get more into the offense. And then you'll have Rhino to clean up O-line packages. I imagine he'll do more of, but it's going to be more of those guys. And I think when you have multiple guys, you have a less risk of serious injury because you can go, let's give it to Weisner between the tackles. Let's give it to Baxter, power. Let's give it to Baby Rhino, which by the nickname, he's full power, and he's got some speed to you too. So, and we didn't see a lot of him towards the end of the season. I hope we get to see a lot more of him throughout the season. I know he had some injury issues and some other things, so. It's going to be a running back by committee. I can't wait to see Trey Weisner again. He was such a shining light for our team when so many guys were going down with injury, and Jaden Blue was coughing up the football. So I'm very interested, and then I'm excited to see Baxter come back, and hopefully he can get back to his normal self, or at least close to it.
Definitely, yeah. We'll see what's going to happen. With Baxter, he started as a freshman, which is very impressive, for a player that's coming in. He was a 5-star out of Florida. But I think that, Texas is really deep at the running back position, which is very important for this team because you see there's a lot of injuries with the running back position. Trey Weisner, like I said, at 1,064 yards, so he was awesome. He can get a little bit stronger this year so that he can absorb some more tackles and take some more punishment, but you could see he can hit a hole. He even has the home run speed that's very important. But Cedric Baxter adds the element of a player that can get tough yards in short yardage situations. Baby Rhino should have been that player last year, but again, he was a true freshman. So Baxter, even if he's not 100% healthy coming back, because ACLs are very tough, at least he can maybe serve as a short yardage back for us a little bit, more.
Sure.
Because even until he gets more acclimated, and back to his normal self. But I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch between, Baxter and Trey Weisner. Baby Rhino's going to get some carries. He had some bumbling issues last year, so hopefully he can improve on that. We needed him to improve on pass protection last year. That was another reason that the coaching staff trusted him, but they didn't trust him to the full extent. Christian Clark, another freshman last year, he was completely lost as well to an ACL injury. Let's see how he comes. He's going to be a player to watch. And then we got 2 freshmen coming in that we saw Baby Rhino needed to be counted on. Let's see if those two true freshmen can come in and add some valuable reps to the running back room.
you can never have too many running backs. Just like key offensive linemen, you can never have too many of those guys. It's kind of like in baseball where you can never have too many pitchers. A guy goes down, a guy's a little sore, especially towards the end of the season, where guys can go up and down that depth chart so much. We saw Jaden Blue vault to the number one spot because of injury. We saw him go all the way down because of fumble issues, right? And then by the end of the season, one of our best offensive players, right? So you can have so many guys in a running back room. It'd be the same thing with offensive line. Oh man, we have so many talented guys. Like that's a good problem to have. It's not like quarterback where you're like, there's really only one guy that can play at the same time. You can have so many options, and with a guy like Weiser and Baxter who have really different styles and size, definitely going to see him on the field on the same drives. And who's hot, who's not. Give this guy some rest on his knees. Maybe he's a little sore. Maybe this happened, especially with Baxter, hurting his knee last year. So it's a good problem to have for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to correct. Thank you for saying that. So Baxter did not have an ACL injury. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. He had a knee injury. So Christian Clark is the one that had an ACL injury. So thank you for cleaning that up.
Sure.
So let's talk about wide receivers now. So we are very deep with wide receivers coming back. We have two main guys coming back with production. Ryan Wingo, who we're showing right now, he was a stud, true freshman, making the freshman All-American team. And then we have DeAndre Moore. But the thing about DeAndre Moore is that he's going to be out all spring because he's been dealing with a toe injury. And then after those two players, we have some guys behind them, that redshirted last year, like a Parker Livingstone, a guy, Aaron Butler, who's starting to make some headway a little bit. And then the three true freshmen, 2 5-stars, Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, and then Dalen McCutcheon. So how are you feeling about the wide receivers going into the spring?
I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be so much fun to watch. I mean, I think there's going to be some growing pains at the beginning. I think Ryan Wingo is definitely going to be wide receiver 1 for sure. It's going to be, and then DeAndre Moore, health-wise, should be wide receiver number 2. Production-wise, maybe safety blanket. We'll see. And then who's going to be that third guy? It's going to be Lockett. It's going to be French. Is it going to be someone else that was on the squad last year? I really, really love DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo. I expect really, really big years from them. And then my thing, I won't put a name on it yet, but I will say one of the freshmen, be it a French, be it a Lockett, be even the guy, maybe even a guy that didn't get a lot of playing time and was still on the team last year. I think they're going to explode and just be an amazing, amazing player. Maybe even a year ahead than we initially thought. So I'm not going to lock down a name quite yet. I do think there'll be growing pains early in the season, maybe about touches, about routes, knowing the offense. But once we get into October, we're going to be clicking. And with that running game, it's going to be really, 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 really awesome to watch.
It definitely is. So some of those players that I mentioned that are redshirted last year that are coming back, a name to really get to know, ladies and gentlemen, is Parker Livingstone. He was a freshman last year. He's 6'6". He's skinny, but he's very lanky. And they said that he looked really good in practice, and that if another wide receiver went down last year, he would have been there to step up. So he's going to be a player from Lovejoy, Texas, that's really a player that can break out this year. He's going to be young. He's going to be a redshirt freshman, but he can make contested catches. He has a good catch radius. He still needs to be a little bit more physical because he can get jammed a little bit, but his development is coming along really well, and he's a player that we expect to be counted on because he's been already getting great reviews. But let's see how he looks, in the spring. Ryan Wingo is going to continue to improve his game, continue to improve his physicality. He got LASIK surgery actually because he said at times it was hard for him to see, and he still had such a dominant freshman year. Imagine that if he actually could see, like 100%. So he's going to be dangerous. He is going to be right. So he's going to be dangerous to watch. He's going to be one of the best. He's going to put his name. I believe Ryan Wingo is going to be our number 1 wide receiver. He's going to have a Matthew Golden type year, and he's going to put himself in the Jeremiah Smith conversation within the country. We all know how good he is, but the country doesn't really know how good Ryan Wingo is, and he's going to be up there with Jeremiah Smith. I really believe that. DeAndre Moore, we know what we have, a steady wide receiver that runs good routes, catches the ball. Let him get healthy with this toe injury. We don't need to see anything more from him this spring. It's just all about
Yeah.
getting healthy with DeAndre Moore. And then, as Nick said, the freshmen. So I'll break down each of the freshmen. JB French, 5-star from Jacksonville, Florida. By the way, the first player in Texas Longhorns football history that we've ever signed from Jacksonville, Florida. So that's a little nugget right there. Those of you that are from Florida and from that area, he's a speedster. He's fast. He has that quick twitch. He can really cause a lot of yards after catch. He could be a guy that could pick up the offense quickly and get on the field. Khalid Lockett is a very more physical wide receiver. He's bigger. He's 6'3", 6'4". He needs to get a lot stronger, but he can win a lot of the 50-50 balls. Then the third wide receiver, Dalen McCutcheon, who was a 4-star. Think about Dalen McCutcheon as I'm talking about right now, Nick, as a poor man's DeAndre Moore. He can develop into a DeAndre Moore type of player.
That's pretty good if he's 6th on the depth chart.
Yes. And eventually, when DeAndre Moore, Wingo, and them leave, I believe he's going to be next. He's going to be like our DeAndre Moore, Jordan Whittington type of wide receiver, just steady. Oh, yeah. And I believe he's going to be that. So those are our wide receivers. And then Aaron Butler, like I said, he's been flashing. He's been in the slot. He's our next slot receiver. So he's been getting a lot of reps. But they said he's had a lot of inconsistencies with his hands because a lot of colleges that were recruiting him, like USC, wanted him to be a cornerback, but he committed to Texas because Texas was one of the few schools that said you could come in as a wide receiver. So he's still learning the position a little bit, but he's a player that could definitely break out this spring.
I mean, I think the fun part with Ryan Wingo is that last year the talk was Jeremiah Smith and the kid from
Ryan Williams,
right. And then Ryan Wingo is also in that same class. We've had the same argument. There's also the guy from Auburn as well. They're all so good. The thing with Ohio State and with Alabama last year, especially Alabama, he had to be the guy. I mean, he had to be the guy, and maybe it hurt Ryan Wingo a little bit. Not really. I mean, we ended up doing really well. I think it was good for his development, but he had Matthew Golden there. There was Isaiah Bond. There was Gunnar Helm. Even Jaden Blue was coming out of the backfield. So those guys had to step up really much last year, and now it's going to be on his shoulders. He was under all those guys, and now he's going to be the clear number one. DeAndre Moore is a great number 2. And then we're going to see who else fills out this depth chart. I mean, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. Manny's going to has a lot of toys in the toy shed to be able to play with in the backfield, around him, on the defensive side if he wants to go over there. Or Sark has lots of toys to play with. So it's going to be another fun year, another speed year.
Man, I can't wait.
I know you're already excited.
Oh, you got me excited. Oh, for sure. So I follow a lot of recruiting. So at times you may hear me geek out a little bit on the show about recruiting. So forgive me for that, ladies and gentlemen. But I follow these guys with the whole recruiting process and then them committing to Texas. So I'm already kind of familiar with their game. But it's also fun to see how they develop in college. So when I say Dalen McCutcheon could be like a Jordan Whittington, DeAndre Moore type, let's see. He still needs to develop. He's only a true freshman, but he still has time. JB French and Lockett are going to be 2 studs. The fan base is going to fall in love with them very quickly because they're 2 awesome guys that can come in. Parker Livingstone's another guy. He's like a lunch pail guy who is willing to do all the dirty work, do whatever it takes. He wanted to be a Longhorn since he was growing up, and he was stoked when he got that Longhorns offer, and he's just living out his dream. And he's going to play a lot, so he's going to be a player that's going to be really fun to watch. But to round out the position groups, I just wanted to talk about the tight ends just very briefly because we it's still up in the air with them. So we got Jordan Washington coming in. He was a freshman last year. He redshirted, but he's a 6'6" tight end, has all the tools, everything. But let's see if he's going to be the tight end 1. And then Nick Townsend, who was a 5-star tight end, but he did not enroll early. He was one of the few players because he likes to do track and field, so he wanted to stay in the senior year of high school to do track and field. But If he enrolled early, I would have predicted him to be tight end 1 coming into the season. So
Yeah.
those two are gonna battle it out. Spencer Shannon is a 6'7" guy from modern day, a powerhouse in California, but he's more of like a blocking tight end. So we may use a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends with him on the field. But my question is, Nick, do you think we can go in the portal to get another tight end or a wide receiver? Do you see that happening if it's the right guy?
If it's the right guy, absolutely. I mean, you've seen Stark's willingness to do that over the last few years. I mean, it's kind of like free agency in professional sports where if you need a guy, it's that, you kind of go get him, you try it out. If it doesn't work for either party, they go to another school or maybe they stay in the program and try something else. But
Right.
definitely, I think definitely for tight end, for sure. Wide receiver, it would have to be a really perfect situation. Just because I would just be like avoiding the struggle, the pain that I would put in air quotes just because they're so young. But again, you still have DeAndre Moore, who would be a sophomore. You have Ryan Wingo, who's a sophomore, who played a lot of football last year. So it's not completely green. The tight end is very green. You just listed a lot of freshmen on the depth chart. That's not awesome. I mean, they're gonna be awesome. They're gonna be freaky.
Yeah.
You might get more of the wide receiver depth chart going just to get those tight ends more comfortable. Maybe use the one who's a blocking tight end just to get them more into it. But usually in those situations, I feel like guys that can play and you play them early, like a Kelvin Banks his freshman year, Bijan always was playing. They are better by the end of the season, and it's better for their careers. So maybe that's what we end up doing. Maybe Sark's like, if I can get one of these tight ends to hit just one this year, and maybe that's like half of one and half of the other, like they equal just one decent tight end, I think we'll be okay. They're talented guys. It's just going from high school, big-time high school to big-time college is a big change. And it's the SEC, it's Texas. So we'll see. We're very green on offense. But yes, I think if it's the right situation, it's got to be perfect to me for wide receiver because we are pretty loaded. We're just really young. Tight end, I think there's more wiggle room to be like, well, this guy, I don't know if he's a perfect fit, but he's an older guy in the locker room that can help them. I think that'd be more the scenario Stark would look for.
Definitely, and our tight ends are very talented. That Jordan Washington kid that I was telling you about, that's a retro freshman. He's 6'6". He has all the tools, but he's just young. So he's just young. So and then the blocking tight end Spencer Shannon. I believe he's only a redshirt sophomore. So I think he's going to his 3rd year, I believe. And then that Nick Townsend kid. He's been around, but he hasn't played. He has not had one single snap in a real game yet. And then Nick Townsend, he's coming in as a true freshman, and like I said, he didn't enroll early, so he won't be on campus until June. But he's a kid that can pick up things really quickly. But
yeah. No, it would just be interesting. Go ahead.
No, sorry. So I think that we should pick up another transfer from the transfer portal as a wide receiver because we've done so the last 3 years, 2 years, Adonai Mitchell, Isaiah Bond, and Matthew Golden, and it's worked out fantastically. Yeah. But it has to be the right wide receiver because they don't want just somebody coming in as just a guy that's looking to be a number 1. No, we already have our number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, but it has to be a guy that, a 3, a guy that's willing to come in, contribute, and has to be a right fit in our system. We flirted with some tight ends with the wide receivers when the transfer portal first opened, but the Penn State wide receivers, a couple of them, but Sark felt like they weren't the right pieces. But I still think we should get one. So I'll go back to your point earlier, Nick.
Just talk about the tight end that was redshirt sophomore. We've had some pretty good tight ends over the last few years. Obviously, Gunnar Helm has been on the team, so it's not for a lack of talent that he hasn't broken through. There were some pretty good guys on there, and tight end can be weird where you're a mini offensive lineman. You're also kind of a wide receiver. You're usually, especially for a younger quarterback, or even for Quinn, who was a vet, you usually rely on your tight ends. And if things aren't available, you also go to the running back. So they're very, very important, but it's a very hard job to kind of crack through and be the guy. So we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of new names that we're going to be talking about this year, which I think is fun. I do think we'll end up landing a guy, tight end or wide receiver, just gut feeling, just because we are so green. But time will tell, and we'll see.
So we're not going to have a lot of draft. Compared to this year, we may have 12 to 13 players drafted. Next year, it may be a little bit of a lull just because we're such a young team.
Still
And then
several guys.
right. And then the year after that, it's going to be crazy. We're going to have like a crazy amount. Like for this next year's draft, our really only draft eligible guys on offense are Trey Wiseman, who's going to be a junior, Trevor Gooseby on the offensive line, that's going to be a junior. Then DeAndre Moore is going to be a junior. So those are like our really only 3 draft eligible guys, not including Arch Manning, because we don't think he's going to go to the draft. But it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it will, for sure.
Well, now, so speaking of the draft, let's talk about one of our favorite draft analysts. He's a former Longhorn, Chris Sims. He came out with his quarterback rankings earlier today, and he had Cam Ward number 1, no surprise. Shedeur Sanders 2, that's also expected. Jackson Dart 3, Kyle McCord 4, and Quinn Ewers comes in at 5. So, Nick, do you agree with this list?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think how much we've been talking about this. We said Cam Ward was number 1, Sanders was number 2, and then as we talked about around the combine time, that we said Jackson Dart was about 3. Now, me personally, I haven't seen a lot of Kyle McCord. I know a lot of guys like Kyle McCord, and he would be in that 4 to 7 range, just depending on what you like from the guy. That's the same thing with Quinn Ewers. We also said that his name was rising. So, no, this is not a surprise. This is amazing news for Quinn. He gets into that top 5, and I'm very, very happy for him. These are really, really solid quarterbacks. I like Kyle McCord. I mean, he was at Ohio State. They kind of pushed him out. And then you and I were talking about last year, he balled out at Syracuse. So I have no problem with him being 5th. You don't want to be 6th on the graphic. It's a different, it doesn't look as good. He's top 5 in the Sims quarterback rankings, right? That's solid. No one cares if you're 4 or 5. So I think this is great. I'm happy that he got in here. And Sims has no bias to Texas players. He just wants the best guys. I haven't listened to his analysis yet. I've listened to the Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders part. So I'm excited to see what he has to say, but pumped that he's top 5. That's awesome.
Definitely. And just talking about Quinn, so I did listen to some of his analysis, what he said, and he really likes Quinn Ewers. He flicks the ball. He throws a very easy pass. Like, he just flick his wrist. He's so talented with the arm swing. Like, it's just ridiculous how, like, he could throw on every single blade on the grass. From what I got, Chris Sims' biggest criticism of Quinn was at times he did not throw it, as he would say, 97 miles per hour, like throwing a ball fast, to put it in those tight windows. He would throw a lot of lollipops and like a lot of balls that would just float in the air, rather than him just throwing it as hard as he can, because that allows the wide receiver to get yards after catch and makes it easier for them to go score a touchdown. That was Chris Sims' biggest criticism, but he may think that that's because Quinn was injured. He was not 100% healthy. And also how he faced pocket pressure. His best performance with pocket pressure was against Michigan. He was awesome against the pressure. But that started to decline as we started to get further in the year. And he was going, just looking at his first read. And then when he didn't have his first read, then he would just either take a sack or just sit there like a sitting duck in the pocket. He needs to improve his footwork, which we've been saying all along. But we know he just wants Quinn Ewers to show off his arm strength and really throw the ball as hard and fast as he can, because that allows the wide receiver to be able to get those yards after catch. That's the biggest thing. But Quinn Ewers, right now, he said he's going to be a 3rd-round pick. It's looking like it. Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers are around the same place. Kyle McCord threw for almost 5,000 yards at Syracuse, and he was number 1 in the country in yards, in passing yards, which is pretty incredible. They had some big wins. They beat Miami at home. He balled out this year. So I'm happy to see Kyle McCord number 4, because a lot of people put Jalen Milroe at the number 4, and I know we don't agree with that as much, the Jalen Milroe part. at 4. But Nick, what about Jackson Dart? Talk about him, and do you think he has a chance to go in the slide into the first round and be that QB3 behind Cam Ward and Shador Sanders?
I do think he does. Yes, he's shown a lot of talent. I mean, his NFL Combine a few weeks ago was he did a very good job there. He'll have his pro day coming up soon. So yes, I do think he can sneak in. There were some brief discussions. I guess they're still happening about Sanders falling, which I've read more and more about, where how he didn't interview particularly well. He's like he's got to fit with a certain type. Some coaches like him, some don't. Going back to Sim's breakdown, he doesn't think it's going to be that big of a deal in the end of things. But it could run an ownership the wrong way. And in some mock drafts, I've seen him fall a little bit, which could allow a Dart to sneak ahead. I don't think Dart will go ahead of Sanders in the end. But I could see a Sanders fall, and I could see a Dart sneak in. I do want to hit on one other thing. How great is it to have a top 5 Texas quarterback here? I mean, when was the last time we had a quarterback? All love to Ellinger, all love to all the previous guys. Colt McCoy coming out, he wasn't top 5. He went a lot later. Vince Young. It's probably since Vince Young, right? So
it is. Yeah.
We don't know if it's going to fall this way exactly. But Sims has a very good track record. He was one of the few guys that was on Patrick Mahomes. He was on Bo Nix. His top 3 last year were Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix. And not a lot of people were big on Bo Nix. We're hit or miss. So that's just a great stamp of approval that we got a Longhorn at 5. It's been a long time. And, we won't have one next year, hopefully, because Arch will still be at UT. But right after that, hopefully he's, 1 or 2, which is awesome. It's great to have that Longhorn logo on the top 5.
Definitely, for sure. I think Arch Manning, not to get too hard on ourselves, but he could be number 1 overall pick. He has that ceiling. Let's see if he gets there. But yeah, we got to appreciate Quinn Ewers, ladies and gentlemen. He is the one that brought our program back-to-back semifinals. He's 3rd in school records for passing touchdowns, I believe. So he's awesome player. I believe he's still being slept on, Nick. I feel like a lot of draft analysts who are sleeping on him, but a lot of teams, I'm getting the sense, have him a lot higher than what the draft analysts have him as. I'm just getting that feeling. He might, and I can't wait to see the draft analyst's jaw drop when Quinn Ewers gets drafted higher than they think he gets drafted. I think he's going to go.
I really think it's similar to Jackson Dart because, there was a lot of plays towards the end of the season, just how they lost. They lost to Florida. They got themselves out of the playoff conversation, and people were all over Dart. We're out on him. And then you look at the film and you look at everything else, and Dart is a great player. He was my number 1 SEC quarterback at one point.
Yeah, I give you props.
But we still said he's behind. It's Ward and Sanders, and then it's Dart, right? We've been saying that, basically at least halfway through the season, I'll say halfway through the season and until now. And that's proven its point. So guys can fall off the radar just based on perception. And then those guys end up coming back if their film is good. Film doesn't lie, right? So Jackson Dart has great film. Obviously, there's things he could work on. Kyle McCord. I like Kyle McCord. I'd be happy for Kyle McCord. I think he got pushed out of Ohio State. I think they would have won a national championship with Kyle McCord out of Ohio State.
They would have, yeah.
Definitely a lot better than Will Howard. I think we can all agree with that. No hate to Will Howard, but he's definitely a better thrower than Will Howard. And then Quinn Ewers, it's a smart guy. It's a guy who's been around a program for a long time, the same program. He goes to the right fit, the right team. We've mentioned the teams. Maybe it's the Dolphins. Maybe it's the Rams. Maybe it's Seattle, who just, signed Sam Darnold to a deal. Wouldn't be the Vikings, right? They just drafted J.J. McCarthy, but it'd be a team that maybe already has a vet. Maybe it's the Giants. Maybe
the Saints. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. Why not? So, I don't know. It'd be interesting. We're mid-March. We're a couple of weeks away from prime mock drafts and, and all that stuff. And then we're really about little over a month away from the actual draft. So it's gonna be pretty awesome, and it's gonna be
Getting
awesome
closer.
wherever he goes and all those Texas guys. So it's a good time of the year for sure.
It's the best time of the year with March Madness and the draft getting closer. It's amazing. I think Kyle McCord is going to be better than a lot. There's been a lot of hype around
Yes.
Tyler Shuck, that Louisville the Louisville quarterback,
Yes.
but he's in his sixth year. I would rather draft Kyle McCord in the second round than I would draft Tyler Shuck or even Will Howard. Like, I don't get that hype at all, and I think that hype has dwindled a little bit after he disappointed at the combine. Maybe there's a lot of pressure because there was a lot of Ohio State fans there, and he did not perform the best in that combine. But I've heard some reports, just doing some research, that the Raiders do like Quinn Ewers, and the Raiders, here's a scenario. They pick number 6. So let's just say Shedeur Sanders goes number 2 or number 3 to the Giants. So if they're not able to get Shedeur Sanders, they pick maybe one of the offensive linemen or a McMillan, a Territory McMillan maybe. In the second round, they said they may be interested in circling back and picking Quinn Ewers in the second or third round. Again, this is if they do not get Shedeur Sanders. All bets are off if he's still at number 6. They're going to draft Shedeur at number 6. I think Nick would agree with that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome, especially if they got McClellan from Arizona. I think that would be a great fit. At least give him, and then they already have Geno Smith as a starting quarterback. So, he wouldn't start for probably the first year, maybe even 2 years. So you have him. They signed a running back. I can't remember his name, but then you have.
They got Bowers from Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, Bowers from Georgia. You got, if they draft a tight end, and you get to sit behind a vet and a guy like Geno Smith, who I really like a lot. I mean, that'd be a great fit. So I know the Raiders are trying to revamp and rechange things. I love Quinn. I think for Raider Nation, drafting Quinn wouldn't be as cool as drafting Shedeur, but hey, winning football games is cool, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I don't know. That to me, that's an interesting scenario. I wonder what happens with trades. The Giants are so interesting to me because are they going to go after Russell Wilson? I think they're out on Aaron Rodgers. What do the Steelers do? Do they try to draft your quarterback if they have a vet? The Jets, they just Justin Fields to like a 2-year deal, right? 1-year
option. Quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised.
In the future, like if Fields balls out, keep Fields. But maybe that's another team that could be interested in Quinn Ewers in a round 2, maybe round 3. But I agree with you. I think the Heat is picking up on him. Let me just say this one part to round out Sims's honorable mentions. Tyler Shuck, Louisville, honorable mention.
Yep.
So that means he was probably that 6th quarterback, that Ewers was just over him. Other guys that he had talked about, Dylan Gabriel, Graham Mertz, Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard. There's a drop-off, clearly, right? From what I've seen with Jalen Milroe, he's awesome off the field as a person, fantastic athlete, but just too inconsistent. He could be an intriguing guy that someone picks up later, probably in the 4th or 5th round, that could develop into something, but he's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Jalen Hurts. He would need to develop a lot more, but he could be interesting if gone to the right team, but we'll see.
I thought he should have came back to school because he could have been number 1 or number 2 quarterback taken to next year's draft if he developed even more. I thought Milroe made a mistake because if you put him against Aller, for example, or Klubnik in next year's draft, he would be right there with those guys, But again, he decided to come because you never know. Maybe DeBoer pushed him out because he wants to start his guy, because Jalen Milroe was never a Caleb DeBoer guy, So he just inherited him. He just inherited him. So a lot of quarterbacks. Tyler Shuck, the type is getting a little bit too crazy around him. He's a 6th-year guy. He's had a lot of injuries. Yes, he has the arm strength, but I think Sims even said that he's going to be in his breakdown of Tyler Shuck that he's going to be a high-level backup quarterback. Maybe like a Colt McCoy for like 12 to 13 years. But
still a great career. That's like you said, 12 years NFL backup. I mean, it's still pretty good. But like if you're looking for a franchise-altering guy, I think Sims hit it. You hit it. Whereas it's just those 5 guys.
Yes.
It's obviously Cam Ward number 1, Sanders. Dart, McCord, and then Quinn. Hopefully Quinn gets to a good spot. He balls out and he has a 10-year career as well. So we'll see.
I think he's going to, and he's going to improve his stock even more because the pro day is next week. It's on the 26th. So all the scouts are going to be there. The scouts, the good thing about a pro day, just to give you some insight into it, the scouts tell the Texas coaches what specifically they want to see from the quarterbacks, so then the quarterbacks can base their drills around that to improve what the scouts want to see. And the good news is that Quinn is going to be throwing to his wide receivers, not the wide receivers at the combine, the random wide receivers from other universities. And they're going to be able to see Quinn. Usually they go out to dinner the night before or after the pro day. They spend time, like they go to dinner with him, they spend more time with him. And once they spend more time with him, they're going to see his football makeup. They're going to see his character. He just basically turned 22 on Saturday. So happy late birthday, Quinn. He's 22 years old. And I think a lot of teams like him, but they're pushing these other guys in the media because they want Quinn Ewers to fall to their team. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. Be sure to follow us on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go back and watch our old videos, especially during the season, because we have some awesome reactions to a lot of the intense games that, Michigan, Oklahoma, Arizona State, our Clemson reaction was a lot of fun. So go back and watch those videos. We're going to be continuing to preview more of the position groups during the spring. We're going to talk about the defense next episode. And there's a lot of talent on the defense. Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, Michael Tapp is coming back. There's a lot of great talent to talk about. Also, we're going to talk about some of the transfer players that are coming into Texas and kind of how they fit with the team, because we pick more transfers on the defensive side of the ball. So we want to get everybody acclimated and used to those names because those guys are going to be high impact players. We're also going to be talking about the tournament, the basketball tournament. Hopefully both teams are still in by the time we're talking about our next episode. But baseball, when 17 straight wins in a row, they only lost one game, and that was the first game of the season. They've been killing it. Softball beat a series with number 3 Florida. They've been doing really well. So Texas athletics is definitely on the up. But until then, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next time.